under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Stateside Footy. Before we get into it, guys, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe buttons, and of course, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any Stateside Footy's upcoming content. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get after it because it was a pretty decent weekend for U.S. men's national team pool players in Europe. And some pretty good performances overall. I actually think the center defensive mid group actually probably had the best of the position groups. And of course, led by Tyler Adams, who actually had a phenomenal performance for Bournemouth in their 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest. But like always, we start with the striker groups because, again, man, goals pay the bills, right? Dry for show, putt for dough, right? That's the whole thing, right? So we're going to start with Flo Balogun in Monaco's 1-0 win over Toulouse. Balogun did manage 60 minutes, did manage 2 shots on goal, 21 touches, 3 in the opposition third, 6 of 9 of accurate passing, and that was pretty much it for Flo Balogun through essentially an hour of play. Again, from this standpoint, Flo, the interesting thing is like midweek against Tottenham in the Champions League, against a fairly defensive crew, a little bit rotated in the Champions League. I thought that might have been an opportunity for Flo to kind of showcase himself. Okay, that one ends up in a 0-0 stalemate this week against a little bit of a better opposition for him to score. Of course, doesn't necessarily get on the board, but it was, some of those numbers actually are okay. But again, a little disappointing because I thought Flo would kind of take advantage of this opposition. Not so much. It is what it is. Turning our attention to Ricardo Pepi in PSV's 3-2 win over Feyenoord and the Dutch Eredivisie. Now, it's interesting to say that midweek against Napoli, he did have a goal and assist in European play, and I thought there might be a little bit of a rebound for him against a Feyenoord team. He only played 7 minutes, but in those 7 minutes, he did manage 9 touches, 2 shots on goal. And it looked like he was an accurate passer, 5 of 5. Again, it was only 7 minutes. And from that standpoint, it's not exactly easy to rate out. I don't know exactly how you can rate out 7 minutes. But that being said, he did see the pitch. But if you're judging this week, in totality, it's actually not a bad week, considering his performance against Napoli in European play. Haji Wright and Coventry City, the high-flying Sky Blues of Coventry City, they did beat Watford 3-1 this weekend. And as a matter of fact, I ended up watching that match because I can't resist championship football. Played 73 minutes on this one, 22 touches, 13 to 14 of accurate passing, and that was essentially it for Haji Wright. As it looks like his counterparts there in Coventry in that attack were the goal scorers. As a matter of fact, I think Coventry scored 2 goals in 7 minutes to open up that match. I guess it was kind of a so-so performance for Haji. He did manage a 6 rating. Okay, that's kind of cool. But that being said, it also should be noted that Haji has not actually had a goal contribution since October 4th. And so now this is his, 4th or 5th straight week without a goal contribution. Not exactly that alarming, because, again, these guys in the championship are going to go through little forms of purple patches where it feels like they're scoring every week for 5 weeks, and then it'll kind of be a little stale for a few weeks. But that being said, it is a little concerning, especially considering the international break that he had where he scored 2 against Australia. That coincidentally was the last time that he actually scored, by the way, in quite a long time. So it is what it is. So we'll keep an eye on Haji Wright. Josh Sargent is back on the score sheet this week in a 2-1 loss to Swansea City. In 70 minutes, Josh did get an assist in this one. 27 touches, 3 in the opposition box, 13 of 19 of accurate passing. 3 of those went to the final third. And it was a pretty solid performance. And again, here's the weird thing about Josh is, he had a 6-week, a 6-week drought where he had absolutely no goal contributions. That being said, his work rate was absolutely phenomenal. And again, work rate was pretty good in this one as well, too. Good enough to earn a 7 rating. But it's nice to actually see some goal contributions again from Sargent. And I probably would assume this is probably going to end up, putting himself in a little bit better position to start scoring goals again. And again, it's the exact same thing with Haji Wright with Josh Sargent. These guys go on streaks. I mean, these guys are streaky players when it comes to goal contributions. But that being said, the one thing that Josh has, where he kind of has a little bit of an edge on Haji, is the fact that the work rate is always there. And when you consider Norwich City is absolute dog shit this season, as a matter of fact, I think they're 22nd in the championship right now. So they're in the bottom 3 when it comes to relegation right now. That's kind of the focal point with it. That's Norwich City's focal point right now, which is Josh Sargent. So the work rate almost has to be there for him. Patrick Agyemang and his Derby County did beat QPR 1-0 this weekend. Agyemang had 72 minutes on the pitch this week, except he wasn't necessarily playing up top. He was kind of playing underneath in a 10 position off the left-hand side. Did manage 2 shots on goal, 34 touches, 5 in the opposition box, 9 of 13 of accurate passing, and that was all there was that's all there was for Patrick Agyemang this week. Yes, I mean, it's nice to see him continue to get minutes for Derby County, playing out of position this week. And it was kind of an uninspired performance this week from Pat. I got him at a 5.5 rating this week, but it is what it is, man. Being played out of position, I don't know exactly what else I was actually kind of expecting this week. Again, just I don't know, man. There's something about Patrick Agyemang in the championship that doesn't sit right. Maybe it's just because I'm getting used to it. I don't know. I still am not convinced that Patrick Agyemang is going to work out in the championship, although it is a long season, so we'll see. Lastly, last on this list, Damian Downs did not get in for Southampton, and he hasn't played in quite a while now, so it's too bad. I like Damian Downs, and I thought this potentially could have worked out well for him, but it just so far hasn't. All right, moving to the forwards, Christian Pulisic obviously didn't play. Same with Malik Tillman. Weston McKennie did get on the pitch this week in a 1-0 loss to Lazio. He played 78 minutes. He did have a shot on net, did actually have a chance creation this one. 56 touches, 37 to 44 accurate passes, 8 into the final third. Again, another solid performance from McKennie, and I think this is his 4th straight solid appearance now for Juventus. Now, of course, there is some consolation on this one, as Juventus's head coach actually just did get fired after this loss to Lazio, as they're sitting 8th in Serie A. And so this is probably going to be another episode of Weston McKennie is going to have to prove himself again with a new manager. I actually had him in a 6.5 rating. I thought it was actually a pretty solid performance, but it is what it is. Alex Zendejas did not play this weekend for Club America, but Brendan Aronson did play in a 2-1 victory over West Ham. He played 87 minutes this week. He did score a goal on 3 shots. He had 2 chances created, 38 touches, 11 of 15 of accurate passing, 3 into the final third, 8 of 10 ground duels. And it's also worth noting that Brendan Aronson, by the way, actually leads the Premier League in chances created. This is now his 5th straight week of just solid, absolute production. I think his coach came out and said that, goals were the last thing that were going to come. But that being said, when you talk about work rate, he breaks his back for Leeds, and it's nice to see Brendan get on the score sheet this week. It was bound to happen, because if you've been following Brendan from week to week to week, you're starting to see these numbers trend in the right direction, to the point where it's like, okay, cool. He's put himself in very good position to score. They just haven't come until this last week. And of course, West Ham is dog shit. And of course, it comes against a team that's about to get relegated. I want to welcome in Czar real quick. Good to see you, man. Czar, thanks for these updates, man. You're welcome. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, my guy. Gio Reyna did play only 6 minutes in a 3-0 loss to Bayern Munich. And there's nothing really to report from Gio Reyna. Yunus Musa did not play again. So let's turn to the center defensive mids, because I think this was the group that actually shined the most this weekend. Tyler Adams in a 2-0 victory over Nottingham Forest. And Bournemouth, by the way, is now sitting in 2nd place in the Premier League, which is absolutely awesome. I guess you can say that they've overplayed their XG and played their peripherals. But that being said, when you look at Bournemouth, they're just a good team, man. Very tough to break down. Very, very good team. Tyler Adams played a full 90, managed an assist this week, 60 touches, 37 to 44 of accurate passes, 5 into the final third, 11 defensive contributions this week, 3 tackles, 6 recoveries, 3 beers, and a partridge in a pear tree. I'm just joking. He actually had an 8 rating this week. By the way, Brendan Aronson had an 8.5. I forgot to mention that. But he had an 8 rating this week, and I think that this, again, if you've been tracking Tyler Adams, he's one of the biggest reasons why Bournemouth is where they're at. And again, when you think about what happened last year, coming out of Copa America, coming into last season, where Bournemouth didn't have the stability of Tyler Adams in that double pivot, they were kind of easy to play through. Since Tyler Adams has completely recovered, and now he's back to what we expect Tyler Adams to be, that, again, he is one of the biggest reasons why Bournemouth is so incredibly hard to break down. We saw this early in the year, of course, me being a Tottenham guy. When they were at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Spurs, don't get me wrong, they struggle to score goals. But that being said, they could not break down Bournemouth whatsoever. And they tried. It almost felt like it was throwing darts at a dartboard. They tried so many different angles, couldn't break them down. And of course, Tottenham learned what everybody else in the Premier League is learning right now, that Bournemouth is not a team you fuck around with. Tanner Tessman, as Olympic Lyon beat Strasbourg 2-1. Tessman played a full 90. Actually, it was like 89. Didn't necessarily play the entire thing, but close enough. 53 touches, 36 of 43 of accurate passes. 4 of those ended up in the final third. 2 of 4 of accurate long balls, 3 defensive contributions. He 1 of 1 from ground duels. It was, again, another solid performance for Tanner Tessman, good enough for a 7 rating. And again, Tanner Tessman is one of those guys where every single week it's a 7 rating or plus. That dude has literally just been a steady presence. And it's actually starting to pay off when it comes to the national team too. And I think this last window was a sign that Tessman is starting to put himself in a position where the discussion of whether or not he should be starting come World Cup 2026 should be a legitimate conversation, because this dude is now starting to kind of, be that consistent player like Tyler Adams. Adam Morris for Middlesbrough. They had a 1-1 draw against Wrexham in a match where, Wrexham was essentially leading for 85 minutes until Middlesbrough equalized. Aidan Morris played the full 90. He had 121 touches, 94 of 104 of accurate passes. 19 of those went into the final third. 4 defensive contributions, 4 tackles, 7-11 ground duels. Good enough for an 8 rating. And by the way, he was the man of the match for Middlesbrough this last weekend. And again, getting back to those type of performances where, there's a reason why Middlesbrough is second in the championship. Yes, right now, Coventry is kind of the flashy team sitting at the top of the championship, but right underneath, keeping pace, is Middlesbrough. Those 2 teams probably get promoted. And Aidan Morris, just like Tyler Adams, is probably going to be one of the bigger reasons why, because again, very hard to break down. Lastly, James Sands, as St. Pauli lost 3-0 to Hoffenheim. He actually had a pretty strong performance, a full 90, 61 touches, 34 of 45 of accurate passes. 5 of those went to the final third. 7 defensive contributions, 8 of 8 of ground duels, 3 of 5 from aerial duels. And that was solid enough for a 7 rating. And it's, don't get me wrong, man, St. Pauli. Not exactly a Bundesliga, heavy, but that being said, it's like he keeps putting in solid performances. He had the dip 2 weeks ago. But that being said, it's like, he's kind of back now, playing the type of football that I think is more for inclusion on these lists, because I'll tell you what, man, he's quietly putting together a consistent type of season. Turning our attention now to the fullbacks. Jedi did not play. And again, this is kind of a situation where you kind of wonder how this thing is going to play out. Obviously, this is a reoccurring issue from the knee problems that he's been having. And now I'm hearing exactly what's going to happen is like he is going to be held out until he's 100%. They are not going to rush him back. They tried easing him back in, and now all of a sudden they had to shut him down again. And that's fine. I'm perfectly fine with this. Now, if he's not going to be ready until the new year, fine. That's perfectly fine, because we're going to have a window in March. And I think if that's the case where we don't see him until March, perfectly fine with that. I would rather him be held out for as long as it can, for him to be 100%, and for him to join the national team to be 100%, because we're going to need him in the, obviously in the summer. Serginho Dest, obviously with PSV, they lost again 3-2 to Feyenoord. Dest actually had a pretty solid game, played a full 90, managed 1 shot on target, 78 touches, 39 of 48 of accurate passes. 8 of those went into the final third, 12 defensive contributions, 4 tackles, 7 clearances. He did also spring a yellow card. But that's cool. I don't mind that. He had actually a pretty solid game yesterday, good enough for a 7th rating. And John Tolkien, who's Holstein Kiel, drew 1-1 with Bochum. I think that's how you pronounce that Bundesliga 2 team. He played 65 minutes this last weekend, 79 touches, 4 in the opposition box, 31 of 42 of accurate passes, 6 into the final third. 3 of 5 of successful dribbles, 6 of 12 of accurate crosses, 3 of 5 of ground duels, and of course, John Tolkien was good enough to have a 7 rating as well too in 65 minutes. Actually, it was kind of an impressive performance. Was he perfect? Not even in the slightest, but he also, he also didn't have a terrible performance either. So from that standpoint, that's kind of cool, because last week Tolkien was out. So it's good to see Tolkien back on the pitch doing his thing in the second Bundesliga. Joe Scally did actually play 14 minutes in their 3-0 loss, Borussia Mönchengladbach's 3-0 loss to Bayern Munich. But again, 14 minutes, nothing really to talk about here. It was just a nice little, inclusion. So it is what it is, but nothing really to report there. Turning our attentions to the center backs, Chris Richards and Crystal Palace. Lost 1-0 on the road at the Emirates to Arsenal. Managed a full 90, 35 touches yesterday, 33 of 39 of accurate passing, 3 into the final third, 10 defensive contributions, 7 clearances, 2 of 3 of aerial, 2 of 3 on aerial duels. Good enough for a 7 rating. I thought that was pretty awesome. Again, steady. Chris Richards is probably our best defender now. And every single week where he's put in these type of situations where he has to step up, it almost feels like he's also starting to develop into that consistent player for Crystal Palace. Mark McKenzie for Toulouse, they obviously lost 1-0 to Monaco. Did play a full 90, 63 touches, 33 of 47 of accurate passes, 10 into the final third, 3 of 5 of accurate long balls, 3 defensive contributions, 2 of 3 on aerial duels. They kind of scored from inside of the pitch, man. So you kind of gotta look at it for what it was. It was kind of a 6.5 rating. And anytime anybody kind of scores from that side, it is what it is, man. You're kind of held responsible. I kind of wanted to make an excuse for McKenzie, but it is what it is. Cameron Carter-Vickers obviously did not play because he's dealing with an Achilles injury. And no Kai Banks, man. No Kai Banks. And his Augsburg team lost 6-0 to Red Bull Leipzig. 6-0. He played the full 90, playing off the left-hand side of the back three. 70 touches, 58 of 62 accurate passes, 9 into the final third, 6 defensive contributions, 5 recoveries. And, he kind of got a 5 rating on this one because, he certainly did. And the reason was quite obvious because 6 goals conceded is absolutely just, it's irresponsible is what it is. And from that standpoint, everybody on that back three should be ashamed of themselves because when you give up 6 goals, man, I understand it's Red Bull Leipzig, man. And sometimes those dudes, they actually have some pretty competent attackers. But that being said, essentially what that means when you concede 6 is that your back line was completely, a complete liability, whether it's open channels or whether you're missing tackles or whether your positioning is just off, whatever the case may be, man. 6 goals is 6 goals conceded. So it is what it is. No Kai Banks gets a 5 rating for that one as well, too. And lastly, we're going to get into goalkeepers. Ethan Horvath did not play in Sheffield's Wednesday's 2-1 loss to Oxford United. And that's kind of fine too, because again, when you talk about Sheffield Wednesday, they only have 15 first team players that are under contract. And so from that standpoint, right, you would probably assume that there's going to have to be some rotation at some point for Ethan. Because I mean, he's played every single match for the last, since the start of the season. And from that standpoint, and if you know anything about Sheffield Wednesday, they just got put in administration on Friday, which means their owner is finally rid their club of that owner. But that being said, considering there's a transfer embargo in place, they're not going to be able to improve their situation anytime soon. It's just a shitty situation for Sheffield Wednesday. But that being said, he did not play, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Although Ethan Horvath has not been one of the reasons why they've been bad. He's actually been pretty solid for Sheffield Wednesday. Lastly, Jonathan Klinsmann, Jurgen's kid, in his Cessna in the Serie B, they actually beat Sudral 1-0. And he played the entire 90, had 2 saves, 19 of 31 of accurate passes, 4 of 15 of accurate long balls, 7 recoveries, 40 touches, but mostly he had a clean sheet yesterday. So that's actually nice to see as well, too. Good enough for an 8 rating. So that's nice to see that at least one of our European keepers is doing halfway decent. So from that standpoint, I thought we had some very good performances this week, mainly from Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson. And it was nice to see Josh Sargent get back on the score sheet. But that being said, overall, the striker pool, very, very, very bland this weekend. And again, this is actually kind of a trend. I thought, right after the October window, Ballo had a goal, and it was looking like looking like maybe this was going to trend in a pretty fun direction. But for the most part, not so much. The last couple of weeks have been kind of dead for the striker pool. So from that standpoint, it's nice to see Josh get back into the goal contribution realm. When it comes to the forwards, man, Christian Pulisic, I think, is going to be back this upcoming weekend. I don't think he's going to be playing midweek. So I think he's going to be back against Roma. But the question is whether or not they're going to slow roll this out a little bit further, right? I would probably assume that they know that he's going to be healthy, but the question is AC Milan going to slow roll this out so the U.S. can't call him back in for the November camp? That's kind of something that I kind of want to know, right? So obviously they were upset with Pochettino for the way that they handled him in this last window. Of course, he goes out against Australia, and he's been essentially out of action since, right? So that's kind of what I'm kind of curiously optimistic to see how Milan plays this. And is this going to be something where they might extend it an extra week, knowing that the upcoming camp is coming up? So we'll find out about that one. Malik Tillman, obviously, we'll see how that one plays out as well too. But outside of that, man, this week was awesome. Brendan Aronson, and I'm very happy that Brendan was able to get on the score sheet. He's absolutely earned it. He had a phenomenal performance against West Ham. But that being said, he's been good the entire season. Very consistent, very steady. But it was nice to see him actually take advantage and get his first goal of the season. And, of course, Tyler Adams is just absolutely phenomenal. Let's see. Any thoughts on George Campbell? He seems to be playing well, and we are desperate for center backs. Yeah, that's a good question. So, I like it. And of course, he plays for what, West Brom? Yeah, what's funny, because they, West Brom was playing Ipswich this last weekend, and he actually had a really good game. He actually won the most duels in that match. He had 11, played 88 minutes, and it was actually not bad at all. I mean, he had 60 touches, 27 of 31 of accurate passing, 16 defensive contributions, and 8 clearances, 6 recoveries, and yeah, he had 11 total duels. As a matter of fact, it was 10 of 13 ground duels. Yeah, he actually had a pretty solid performance against West Brom. That being said, it was West Brom, but I do agree with you. He had himself had himself a fantastic performance. The question is whether or not Pochettino actually sees him as an asset. And you're absolutely right. It feels like the center back should be on all hands on deck. But it also feels like that Chris Richards and Tim Ream are going to be occupying 2 of the 3, and it almost felt like this last window when he handed 2 starts to Miles Robinson, and Miles Robinson held his own in those 2 matches. It almost felt like that became a little bit more of a go-to, if you will, versus a guy like George Campbell, who I can't actually remember the last time he was called into a U.S. men's national team camp. Don't get me wrong, that's a great shout, by the way. And George Campbell's not bad, not a bad shout. And what also potentially could play into his factor is the fact that Cameron Carter-Vickers has now gone down and won't be back until late next year. So we'll find out about that one. But that's a good shout, by the way. Let's see. Crest One Football says, I watched our Josh Sargent full Norwich game and something not right with him. It's disappointing. Well, here's the thing, right? This week he only played 70, but he did manage an assist. But understand that Norwich City is absolute dog shit. I mean, right now, I think Norwich City, let me pull this up real quick, because I know they're at the bottom of the championship. Here we go right here. So, yeah, they're sitting in 23rd place right now. So they are in the relegation zone. And if it wasn't for Sheffield Wednesday on -6 points, it is what it is. Like, Norwich is not good. 2 wins through their first 12. They've conceded 18 goals this year. And it's understanding that, number one, they decided to go in a different direction when it came to coaching. But number 2, they didn't replace any of the guys that actually worked well with Josh. And I'm talking about Borja Signs. They ended up letting go. And for the most part, Norwich does not have anybody that complements Josh to the point where it's like that dude standing alone on an island. So his work rate is what it is, right? And so from that standpoint, it's like it's going to be incredibly hard for Josh to replicate some of the goal totals over the last couple of years. And it is what it is. Now, a lot of people seem to think that this is Josh's fault because he turned down the move to Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga, opting to stay in England because I think he was chasing either Leeds or Burnley. That didn't materialize, and so he was more than willing to stay at Norwich. But that being said, I think the season's going to force his hand one way or another because if things don't improve, Norwich is going to get relegated. And I would probably assume that Josh Sargent is going to go somewhere else because he's not going to go down to League One. But that being said, it's I understand why he did it, why he stayed because he's got a wife and kids, and the last thing they want to do is uproot their family and go to a country where they don't speak the language. I totally understand why he didn't do it. So it is what it is, man. It was a gamble, and I don't necessarily know. I don't necessarily blame him. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Crest one. Also, shout out to the Epic Tape Party in that PSV game. I did. It's awesome. All right, man. That's going to do it for us. Before we go, again, man, make sure you hit that like and subscribe buttons, and also make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming stateside footy content coming up because we got a few more things we're going to cover this week. And also look out for that as well too. By the way, quickly before I go, there it is. Make sure you check me out on social media. I'm on X at Stateside Footy. I'm on Instagram at Stateside Footy 76 and on TikTok at Stateside Footy. So there's plenty of ways to get a hold of me to talk ball. So hopefully I will see you there. I want to thank all those guys that tuned in to the chat today. I want to thank everybody who tuned in today as well too, man. Have a good Monday, and hopefully we'll see you on Wednesday or Thursday. Take it easy, guys. Good night.
Rusted goalposts under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our